So I just wanted to do a quick 2-minute recap. So in February, we did a session on the Praxis Framework. And we spoke about what really Praxis is. And really, as we said, as a quick reminder, it's accredited by APMG International, who accredited Prince2 and managing successful programs for a long time. But today, they also credit things like the Agile project management and change management as the two other frameworks that you have come across, and I know you're doing some work. So Praxis is accredited by APMG and has taken a lot of those different frameworks and put it into a single framework. It's available free of charge, and the website address I will put on the chat box again later. So really today's session is to introduce two colleagues. One, I'll let them introduce where they are, but one is from the National Health Service and one is from outside the National Health Service, and is asking both Bill and Ricardo as to how they have applied and their learning journey into Praxis, simply why they love Praxis and how they have applied it. So I'm going to hand over to Bill first. And really, if you've got any questions, please either put in the chat box and Helen will ask those at the end. So we'll let them finish their short presentations. But if you want to come on the, on the camera and ask your question, then please do so. I know some people prefer to do that. So we're here to learn off each other, and it's not a one-way presentation. Both are keen to take your questions. Okay, Bill, over to you, please.
Thanks, Raj. Is that slide showing?
Yeah.
Excellent, thank you. I'm Bill Renwick, Senior Digital Program Manager at the OUH. I've been involved with change initiatives for longer than I care to think about 40 years now, across industries such as aerospace, automotive, retail and software, before joining the NHS. I'm proud to be a chartered engineer, and I'd like program management to be understood as a profession in the same way, rather than as just a certificate. Oops, I've gone too far. So a bit about the OUH for those that don't know us. We're a large teaching hospital with an income of 1.6 billion. We have 14,000 people working across 4 main hospital sites and 44 community locations, as well as various outreach services. Our digital programme manages around 100 projects. That's on a 3-year horizon. Last year, we delivered 30 projects and 1,000 optimizations for benefit release. We often find that some rough edges need knocking off the larger projects. The programme involves hundreds of people working in project teams, impacting thousands of staff and millions of patients across acute, primary and social care. We based our programme standard on the Praxis Framework, and we've trained 60 people now across a variety of roles across the whole trust. And we have a growing community of interest involving about 100 staff now. So why did we base our standards on the Praxis Framework? Simply because it covers the full scope of a change initiative, from clinical operations through new ideas, justifying projects and delivering the benefits that patients and staff want to see from programmes of work. We get thousands of great ideas every year to improve process, and the first thing we do is an initial light touch triage to pick out the most promising of those ideas. For the most promising ones, we work those up a bit more into a proposal and take it to finance to sense check if it will clear the financial hurdles. For the proposals that do clear financial hurdles, we fully cost those cases up and sense check if we can fund it from budget or if we need additional investment and a case putting together. For those cases that are approved, we schedule the work into the programme, and having delivered our projects, providing digital enablers to our staff, we close the project. Once staff get their hands on the new products, the programme helps them transition from products they're using now, which is often quite difficult, to use the new product, and to turn the new working practices into habit so that patients and staff do see the benefits from clinical operations. We often find that the larger projects do need a couple of more cycles to knock rough edges off both product when it meets real life and working practice, so that the benefits are fully realised. And we plan for those cycles. Nothing here, I guess, will be particularly new to you. The key thing is that the Praxis Framework covers all of this. Our programmes involve people from many different specialist teams: clinical, scientific, research, primary and social care, administrative and technical. Many of them won't be familiar with the disciplines of managing complex change initiatives, so it's really helpful to have a common language that everyone can get used to throughout the whole programme. It's the Praxis Framework that provides that coherent thread. It bridges the language gap that specialists can dig themselves into with methods such as theory of constraints, lean, Prince2, MSP, quality improvement, PDSA cycles, agile, and I'll stop there. I'm sure you're familiar with many more. It's also consistent with healthcare governance. This is the structure of our governance. On the right-hand side of this slide, you'll see clinical operational governance, and on the left, it's the digital technical governance needed to manage the products. So on the right-hand side, trust programme boards have the clear roles and responsibilities to ensure that the initiative will deliver the planned benefits. And on the left-hand side, the technical project roles and responsibilities make sure that our digital products are delivered to time, cost, and quality. Moving back to the right-hand side, the programme boards pull together multidisciplinary teams from across the trust and beyond to design the improvements needed in patient pathways and in working practices. And reflected on the left-hand side, our technical change management and configuration controls translate those designs into blueprints and workflows so that the digital products that we are providing enable the new ways of working. The governance as a whole ensures team working across all the different specialist expertise that's needed to deliver a complex change initiative, which individual methods often are not able to do. At the OUH, we are operationalising the OUH programme process using a tool called ServiceNow. ServiceNow will pull together one source of truth from corporate operations, through the management of our change initiatives and through to benefit realisation from those programmes of work. The tool automates real-time status reports and executive dashboards for genuine data-driven insights into the health of our programmes of work. And it will replace hundreds of standalone spreadsheets, databases, and pockets of information that can consume days of non-value adding validation at the moment. And I'm sure many of you experience that as well. That's where we are seeing the benefits from using the framework and developing our own standards to that framework. I believe we're taking questions later.
Yeah, Bill, what we'll do is we'll get Ricardo, if that's okay, to do his session, and then we'll take a joint question to both of you, please.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bill, for that. Ricardo.
I'm going to share my screen. Good morning, all. Can you see the screen?
Yeah, we're fine, thank you.
So thank you for having me. My name is Ricardo Santos. Like Bill, I've been on project management for too long, probably. I've worked in 4 continents in sectors like railways, renewable energy, software development, pharmaceutical. I have a broad experience in project and program management, and I joined Irish Rail close to 5 years ago. I'm program manager, responsible for the delivery of the DART Plus program, which is a program for nearly a €4 billion program to renovate the Dublin suburban area, Dublin suburban area. We will improve the railway corridor, enlarge and electrify close to 100 kilometers of railway lines. With that, improving significantly the number of passengers we can carry, and therefore contributing to improved carbon emissions, sustainability, and so on, all those strategic objectives. This busy slide aims to demonstrate what the governance is, governance of change initiatives in the public transport investment portfolio, where, and I'm going to try to switch on my pointer here, where the Department of Transport they set policies and strategies. They mandate an agency to select, as Bill also described, the projects and programs that can deliver those strategies. That's an approving, we call that agency the approving authority. We are the sponsoring agency, Irish Rail. We set up the programs that will deliver to that portfolio. Those that will be approved, obviously. The company organization then has put together a delivery team where I work, or for which I work. We will then engage supply chain contractors and consultants. We will build the works on site. Each contractor will produce an output. All the outputs combined are then integrated and then consolidated. The outputs from multiple contractors, multiple projects are consolidated at program level to deliver an outcome, meaning that we only have operating capability when the various projects are consolidated at program level. The various programs integrated in the portfolio will generate the benefits, which will then realize the requirements of policies and strategies. Another busy slide, but this is our reality. This is the governance structure of our program, the DART Plus program. So I see it here. I report to a program director who has a program sponsor who sits at the program board. The program board has elements from the Irish Rail Executive and from the approving authority, the National Transport Authority, the agency mandated by the Department of Transport. We also have, so we have kind of double reporting to Irish Rail Board and to the Department of Transport and the Department of Expenditure in terms of spending public funding. All those entities here have external consultants to validate, to provide information and validate their decision making, which makes this a very, very complex structure to manage. This slide represents the project or program life cycle, which has Praxis defines 3 processes: identification, definition, delivery, and closure throughout the life cycle. Internally in RFA, we call them evaluation, planning, and management, but that's exactly the same thing. Each phase, each project phase has a planned output. I need to submit the output of each phase to a gate review to the program board to be authorized to progress to the next phase. One of the very interesting aspects of Praxis is that all these governance and management deliverables, I can learn, or we learn, how to produce them, how to make them effective and efficient, because we have at our disposal governance information, governance guidelines, who tells us what to produce, but doesn't have a lot of information on how to produce. So Praxis is an extremely valuable source of information, including annotated templates sorry, go back here, I don't need this yet, to produce all those deliverables throughout the project and program lifecycle. We all hear the discussion waterfall versus agile. I think that's a futile discussion because there's a fluidity. Praxis promotes a fluidity of types of management depending on the needs of the project. Obviously, we don't go to construction. Construction starts here. We don't go to construction before having things very clear. But during all this period of identification and definition, we do both incremental and iterative development. The program has 4 infrastructure projects, and we don't progress to which are shifted on purpose because we test with the first project before moving to the next one. So we grow incrementally. Sorry, this seems to be having a life of its own. We grow incrementally, but also in an iterative way. We develop the minimum functionalities to prove that the solution adopted to deliver the change will work, and then we grow added functionalities. I'll give you examples. We focus mainly, or firstly, on the infrastructure corridor and the electrification. And if we can have an efficient and effective solution, we will go then developing benefits to stations, car parks, accessibility, and so on. There's no point in starting with a station if the initial infrastructure does not deliver what we're looking for. So a typical program like this would take probably 9 to 10 years to identify and define before having boots on ground on construction. Something that will take us 5 years to build will probably take twice as much to develop the pre-construction phase, meaning that we will need resources with different skills throughout the program lifecycle. Identification and definition, this is mostly stakeholder management. It's developing the output, the solution that will deliver the change with extensive stakeholder engagement and communication. So I need in my team people with very strong interpersonal skills. And then when we start construction on site, I still need some of this, but I will need that my team are more focused and more competent on delivery skills. So how can Praxis help? Praxis is organized. So this is the snapshot of the landing page of the Praxis website. Praxis has all this section: knowledge, method, competency, maturity, and a library with encyclopedia and resources. And for me, this is my favorite section. The knowledge section has a subsection called context. And context is absolutely unique because they have a section on setting governance, subsections on setting governance and professionalism. And the setting section is probably satisfies or helps project managers on what is most complex. It's understanding the strategic objectives that are defined at national level, the guidelines defined by the National Transport Agency, understanding the strategic objectives, having clarity of change and transformation desired, understanding how the project or program can deliver to that is fundamental. Then we have the other section that focus on competencies. As I told you, I will need initially interpersonal skills like communication, conflict management, delegation, and so on. And at a later stage, more delivery-focused skills in the point in the middle where I will need both. And Praxis addresses all that. If project managers want to develop their interpersonal skills, they have all the tools there. They know what to do, how to improve. And as Bill started saying as well, we want the project of this magnitude, chartered engineers, chartered QSs, chartered. We want also chartered project professionals to manage a €4 billion project. So we believe that Praxis is probably the best route to have the chartership status. So we're strongly recommending our teams to do that. Why? As I've explained, the program is organized in 4 projects. Each project is organized in packages that we will go out to the market to engage contractors. I will have project managers managing each one of the packages. They need to focus on the interfaces between the various projects within the program, between the various projects within the project, and with outside projects with which each of the 4 projects will have to interface with. So this is not easy. This is what interface management and integration would look like. So as I explained, those 10 years or 9 or 10 years initially is mostly stakeholder management to make sure that we have the right solution before starting construction. And during this period, the competencies that we're looking for mostly are communication, conflict management, delegation, influencing, negotiation, teamwork, all those that you know. And Praxis provides a valuable help to all that. So we focused, and I'm nearly finished, Rajiv, we focused a lot on risk management. We have risk owners very well identified who will manage mitigations of proposed for each risk, which risk is qualified and quantified. There's a provision for risk in our cost estimate. We meet monthly just for risk management purposes. As you've seen from the previous diagrams, interface management is also crucial. So we have a very thorough interface management plan where each one of the interfaces is identified. Each one has also an owner who is responsible for managing that interface from start to finish of each project. We have a thorough communication management plan, stakeholder management plan. We've identified all the this is stakeholder management one-to-one. I know you know that. We identified all the stakeholders, prioritized and defined the communication to each one of them. And we've also made sure that we have very well-defined roles and responsibilities. Everyone in my team knows what they are responsible for, who they interface with, and what they have to deliver. And excuse me, and we drink information. We get information from the capability framework from the infrastructure projects authority in the UK, which I believe is a fantastic document. We use that to develop our job descriptions and to guide us through the delivery competencies of our project managers and assistant project managers. As I said, we promote the development of our team members up to chartered project professionals, and we promote the Praxis route to get there. So last slide as a summary. In terms of governance, our main guidance is the British standards. In terms of delivery competencies, as I said, is the project delivery and capability framework from IPA. Interpersonal and process competencies, clearly Praxis Framework, which is our main source of information. That's it, Raj.
Okay, thank you, Bill. Thank you, Ricardo. I hope I know the two colleagues, you can see one, the aim was to show one from the healthcare sector, which majority of you are, but also if you see there was a lot of similarity in how the governance is set up, whether in a healthcare environment or in a rail industry. So the Praxis Framework, as both of them have said, covers all of the areas. Now, I know some of you might be thinking, well, our projects are not so complicated. You know, however, one of the key words that Ricardo used was the context. So actually, in our sessions, we get people who are working on very small projects. I work very closely with a group of pharmacists about how they do their things. Work with the therapists. So we can do small projects, medium projects, and large. However, every organization needs to develop its own. And we've got Jim. Welcome to you, Jim, if you're still here, from Lincoln, who is the head of the Portfolio Management Office. So it's really working with those colleagues where Bill is and to create that corporate structure. So both of you, thank you very much for sharing why you chose Praxis and what it offers. So before I sort of ask anything, anyone got any questions at all that they would like to ask Bill or Ricardo, please? Anyone at all? Yes, Jim, please. Yeah, come online. You're talking to yourself at the moment, Jim. Apart from that, everything's good.
Sorry about that. Yeah, hi to everyone. Yeah, thanks, Bill and Ricardo. They were both really interesting, really useful. So, yeah, I'm Jim Hartley. I'm the head of PMO at Lincolnshire ICB, and we're currently going through a process of the moment of standardising and finding commonality in programme delivery across the system, the NHS system. So my question is really for Bill, and I know that you said that you very much concentrated on digital within the acute trust. How do you find that links in? Does every I don't know whether you have a PMO within your trust, but how do you find that the kind of approach links in with the different gateways, etc., with the wider trust approach? I fully understand that digital often do kind of create their own approach because digital projects are often run very differently to other improvement projects within acute trusts. But how have you found, from a governance perspective, that how that links in with the kind of system-wide governance? Thank you.
It's actually driven by system-wide governance. The reason, interestingly, the reason I've taken a digital perspective on it is because we don't actually have a formal PMO for the trust. We don't have a formal portfolio office. I think the route you're going down is the route everyone will go down at the ICB level. So all of the governance that I showed you was actually driven from a clinical operational perspective, not from a digital perspective. We bolted on digital. And the framework is very generic with some fantastic content, and it, as Ricardo pointed out, is consistent with the vast majority of guidance that you're likely to see coming through the NHS.
That's brilliant. Thanks, Bill. That's really useful. Yeah, we're going through a big period of change in the PMO at the moment, and developing a framework and an approach is one of the things that I've got on my to-do list, and I hadn't really heard that much about Praxis, and which is why I came along to this webinar, just to learn a little bit more about it, and I'll go on the website and have a look a lot more about it. But yeah, it's useful to know that it's quite generic and can fit in all the different styles of projects that go on around the NHS, because trying to shoehorn everyone into a singular methodology is never going to work, and that's just going to cause resistance, isn't it?
It is, and I think it's why we are such a good case study, because while we don't have a formal PMO at trust level, there are various governance committees and boards that fulfil that function. So it would work even slicker if those groups were formalised into a formal PMO.
Thanks very much, Bill.
David, just before I come to your question, if I could just also, Jim, come to comment. One of the things you can do with Praxis is, I mean, the previous presentation, if you haven't heard, I don't want to bore you with the whole thing again, but Helen will forward you, if you haven't already seen, the previous webinar that we did in February on the Praxis Framework. So Helen and Shannon will send that to you. But what you can do, and they've just done a lot of work in Poland, for example, is you can create a Praxis local version. So what you do is you take the full framework and you create it locally. And that then becomes your local corporate portfolio management office. So for me, absolutely, I've been going on, Bill knows, I've known him for 15 years. My one bugbear is organizations don't have a corporate portfolio management office, and it needs to have the same professionalism as you would do with a standardized human resources department, procurement department, etc. So I think it's great to see that you have taken that seriously across the integrated board and doing what should be done of a true function of a portfolio management office. So anything I can help you with, direct you to certain areas, do sort of please let me know and just drop us an email. Is that okay? Brilliant.
That's really good. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. David.
Hi, yeah, David Bamber from Frimley Trust in Surrey. A question for Bill, really, from sort of the NHS perspective. In terms of kind of skilling people so they're all working in the same way, did you do a sort of sheep dip program for the whole whole series of people? Did you do it individually? Did you start with kind of early adopters to try and seed it that way? Just be interested to understand how you move that forward.
Yeah, we because of the funding, we didn't get as far as we had hoped. But yes, we did a sheep dip with directors, and the view was to take it forward in the digital space first. As I mentioned earlier, we actually trained 60 people across the whole trust, and we've got a community of 100. So the approach is to take it further. We haven't been able to take it quite as quickly as we'd hoped due to the various pressures. But yes, we did a sheep dip with directors. Raj helped us with that. We sense checked the various vocabulary, because each of the directors from different areas had a different vocabulary and method against the framework, and we've iteratively developed that. As I say, trialing it through digital.
Thank you. In terms of a kind of a really senior level person to help drive that, did you have a real sort of champion there in terms of someone pushing it, or were you trying to sort of pull the organisation behind you?
There's a little bit of both. Our CDPO chaired the event that we had as the sheep dip. So we did have chief level sponsorship. The efforts were then allowed to drive themselves based on the perceived benefit from across the organisation. And as I say, the traction is essentially related to clinical pressures and financial pressures in the various areas. Areas that have had more headroom have been able to engage more. So it's been a bit of both. At the moment, as you can imagine, financial constraints are playing their part, and it is maybe has a little less momentum than I might have hoped at the moment.
Kind of follow up in terms of what you showed earlier, in terms of where you're at kind of stage 2 and 3 of identifying the idea and then starting to flesh it through some triage. How much sort of digital project effort and expertise goes into that to help define it and shape it and work out, costs, benefits, etc.?
Well, that is genuinely trust-wide. We have invested heavily in divisions. So we have divisional medical informatics leads. So these are very senior consultants who have an interest in digital. We also have the Hill, which is an international innovation, has international innovation reach as part of the OUH, and that is a trust rather than a digital team. The innovation team organise the ideas by need, talking to the divisions and clinical people. And then that's brought together with some key digital expertise to triage, because some ideas have no digital content whatsoever. So they would continue without the digital program. Lots of QI initiatives follow that path, for example. So it's only the ones that have digital content that we take forward in the digital program, but it is genuinely trust-wide.
Brilliant. Thank you very much.
I think David just come back to add to that. I mean, I work with several National Health Service providers, large NHS providers. They're not as advanced in their digital framework as Bill probably is, and so they actually just use Excel stuff. So a lot of that stuff is in non-digital world. So actually the same context applies to both programs and projects, but across digital and non-digital change initiatives across the organization. So the context works very, very well. Anyone else got any questions they want to ask Ricardo or Bill? Please. I want to ask Ricardo a question first, and I do believe, going back to my conversation with Jim earlier, that project program management needs to be seen as a profession rather than just anybody doing it. As Bill said, it's not simply getting a badge. And one of the ways to do that is to be recognized as a chartered project professional. And if you go to APM, this is APM website, Associates of Project Managers, you will see the route to chartered. Praxis Professional has now been recognized as route 2. So that's one route to do that. Ricardo was the first person globally to achieve, thank you, Shannon, globally achieve the chartered status through route 2. So really, Ricardo, to your question, how has it affected your career being chartered? And also, why did you choose Praxis as your route to take you there, please?
I'll respond to that question if you allow me to ask a question to Bill after that.
Okay.
So I had been certified previously by PMI, by IPMA, and probably a couple more, but none of them. I was not really happy with none of them. There was always something missing in all the certifications I've taken before. When I found Praxis, I quickly realized it was ticking all the boxes. So I did not exit it. I followed Praxis. With your support, it was fairly easy. And then it was a pleasant surprise to conclude that, I did Praxis Foundation practitioner, and then I concluded that if I did Praxis Professional, from Praxis Professional to Chartered was just a very small leap. So it was a very quick and simple process. And now professionally, when you know, we all know that if you're in UK and Ireland, the APM standard is kind of king. If you're in the States or Middle East, they tend to prefer PMI. And we have a bit of that discussion. But when you say you're a chartered project professional, the discussion ends. There's no more discussion. It's seen as if above everything else, because it's covered an umbrella that gives you credibility on all aspects of projects, program, and portfolio management. So for me, it was a very good decision, one of the best decisions I did professionally, no doubts.
Okay, brilliant. You had a question for Bill.
Yes, Bill, from you're a digital man, or a man of the digital world. We are suffering currently pain. We want to buy project management tool, one single source of information to put an end to all those thousands of spreadsheets that tend to float around, one single source of information, and one IT tool that would allow us to manage all that information and give different levels of access to people in the organization with different level of seniority. And we are feeling two things. Number one, people want to continue to grab those beloved spreadsheets. They tend to not want to share information. And they tend to think, this is probably, for me, the most serious aspect. They tend to think that the fact that we will buy an IT tool will solve all the problems of project management. So I think we are now exposed to the need of two different education processes, which are, for me, the core part of the change management process. We need to teach our project managers to behave and manage differently. And we also need to teach the public to start preparing the public to use the different transportation facilities they will have at their disposal. Do you want to comment on this? Do you feel the same pain over there?
Yes, we do, and I mean, there are various tools in the market. So I won't champion any particular tool. But in the modern world, there's no question. The world is moving online. There's more retail online than there is. I used to work for B&Q. There's more retail online than there is in shop. And my sons are very digital. Their lives are very digital. So the generations coming through, I think, I know we must use the tools that are out there, both facing internally to organisations and externally facing. For project managers, the tool we have, I have to say, is fantastic. It gives everything from executive. So the project managers can still have their spreadsheets. They can still do the extracts. They can choose to use the tool, feeds directly into real-time reporting, and provides the executive dashboards, because there's all sorts of clever tools to develop dashboards how you wish them. And the beauty of it is, coming from an IT perspective, it is actually connected to service management. So it not only shows benefits that are coming out of genuine change, some of which will never touch digital, but it does show the impact on the ground. So if it's taking people 20 minutes to log in the morning, that's impacting patient-facing services. So as a dashboard, it's extremely powerful. In terms of externally facing digital, the CRM sort of applications, there are so many on the market. I think the key, from my perspective, if you can get behind the salespeople and talk to the people who are implementing these various tools, many of which will do the job, those are the people you need to be talking to, not salespeople.
Okay. Highlighting the benefits.
Yeah, and brilliant. Thank you, Bill. Just obviously some colleagues will be thinking about it, and just to say to everyone, we as Rajiv Khanna Associates do and have done for the several years, and that's how I know Bill. I provided his project and program management training probably about 10, 15 years ago. Bill just tells you how long I've been doing this as well. But you had colleagues in your group who've done Prince 2 or managing successful programs in the past, and they then joined us for Praxis training. What feedback did they give you as to what they learned on those individual sessions as opposed to what they learned in the Praxis session, please?
I think it played into the points that Ricardo made in terms of the wider context and professionalism. Some of the most interesting comments were people from a QI background who had also done MSP and Prince 2. And it was the wider context, change management focus, that is also available in Praxis. And because it's a framework, it's not as prescriptive. So it allows the local governance and practice to develop a standard that works in the local context. So yes, they were very supportive of the framework.
Brilliant. I mean, it's interesting because I've had a similar conversation with somebody I trained in Oman. He used to work for the electricity board. And this morning we've had a conversation regarding Praxis, and they've said, yeah, absolutely the right way to go. And they've got about 35 project program managers who hopefully the budget is always the focus at the moment, getting the money. But it works out cheaper because you do one course. We said in our previous presentation, it's integrated. So it sort of helps people understand all at the same time. Okay, Sharon, Helen, do we have any other questions from anyone else at all, please? I can't see them in the chat.
No, it doesn't look like it, Raj.
No, okay. Well, I hope the sessions that Ricardo and Bill have done, we can see the same framework can be used in a very, very different context. But the key steps of the Praxis framework that talk about the identification definition are exactly the same in whichever environment we're working in. And it's really fitting in, as Bill says, the framework to an existing governance arrangements in the organization and how the whole process follows. As Bill said, it covers change management, but for me, something that Ricardo pointed out is the interpersonal skills. I've been doing this now for 20 years, longer, but I was a director of operations in a non-clinical world, and we did project management, etc. But for me, one of the main challenges I've always discussed is about interpersonal skills. And none of those methodologies actually talk about them, whereas Praxis does. And when you decide to become chartered, you have to demonstrate. So when Ricardo went for his interview, he talked about a concept of conflict management. How did he deal with that conflict? Because he said when he joined Irish Rail, there was somebody who'd been working in the organization for a long time. So he expected him, to have some conflict. So he preempted the conflict. He talked about it, and that, made it better for him. And that was one of the interview questions he has. So the actual the assessment for professional is not an exam. It's not a course. It's really an application process. The good news for you all now, as opposed to Ricardo, he had to talk about 20 competencies. You don't have to do that. It only 13 competencies, because that is then what aligns to the APM standards. So we hope in the session that we did in February that I did personally and talked about the Praxis framework and the context that Bill and Ricardo have spoken about, that more organizations choose to consider the Praxis framework. And to me, it aligns very well with what Jim was saying, and Frimley, it's integrated. So we have an integrated care board. Why were they set up? To make sure we're doing things consistently. And really, that's what Praxis does, provides an integrated approach to managing both programs and projects. So on behalf of the rest of the group, a round of applause, if I may, please, for Bill and Ricardo. Thank you very much for your time this afternoon. I've learned a few things, so I hope the rest of you have managed to get something extra from these two guys. But please get in touch with them on LinkedIn, and they will share their experiences. And also, Helen and Shannon, when they send you the recordings, they will send you a PDF copy of the two presentations. You may not be able to read some of the stuff that they've done, but you can see how complex their world is, but they can still use Praxis Framework to support them in that way. All right, so thank you all for your attendance this afternoon. And any other questions, then please raise them with us. Thank you from me as well.